Brenda Davis, a very famous dietitian, has given these characteristics of an optimal diet. So it should maximize health and well-being, should minimize the risk of chronic disease, should meet the need for all essential nutrients. These are available on a whole food plant-based diet. So what's happening is that a lot of lies are being said. Like for example, you say that only animal protein is good, or you require calcium from dairy. A lie repeated 1,000 times becomes the truth.
I would like to invite Dr. Anand Kumta. He is the authority for retina in our area and beyond, and he is humble to the core.
Thank you so much, Rohit, for those kind words. So when Sharang called me up for this, to give me this talk on pitfalls of a low carb diet, I immediately accepted, because I realized that it's, the low carb movement is really gaining momentum in India. I thought we should address this trend and see where we actually stand. So when we talk about food, our grandparents and all never talked about carbohydrates, protein, fats or components of food. They used to just eat mostly whole plant foods. And just to talk about it, food is made up of macronutrients, which are carbs, proteins and fats. Also micronutrients, which are vitamins, minerals, phytonutrients, fiber and water. Now carbohydrates, we should understand, are the main source of energy, and about 60 to 80% of our calories should come from carbohydrates, and they should be consumed in the natural form, that is complex carbohydrates. Proteins are of course very important. Proteins are required for tissue maintenance, replacement, function and growth. And the actual human body requires only 6 to 10% of our calories from proteins. And another very important thing is that all essential amino acids that the body cannot make on their own, all these are made only from plants. And even if we consume animals, they have actually consumed it from plants, and we are consuming the middleman. What about fats? All excess carbs and proteins are converted to fat, and all of us are excellent experts at creating fat. We know that when we don't go to the gym or we have some indiscriminate eating, immediately our belt gets tighter, and we require only 10 to 15% of our calories from fat. And the only two types of fat that you really require, the essential ones, are omega-3 and omega-6. So these are the various low carbs diets that we've been hearing about. This came in, I think, the 70s or 80s, popularized by one Dr. Atkins, Robert Atkins. And of late we hear about these two diets. South Beach diet came in briefly about, I think, 20 years back. And we also have some extreme forms like the carnivore diet. So let's understand what this keto diet is. A keto diet is a diet which generates ketones, which are acids produced by the liver from fatty acids. So when you are deprived of carbohydrates, that is glucose, the body is forced to use fats, or ketones, as an alternative energy source, and it creates a metabolic state called as ketosis, that is elevated ketones in the blood and urine. So this occurs naturally during prolonged starvation and severe illness, and one of the effects is that it results in profound weight loss. So what does a person on keto diet eat? So he eats a very high fat diet. So you can see all these foods which are included, like cheese, oil, nut butters, avocados, a lot of protein like 25 to 30%, and all the meats and eggs and fish, and very low carbs, like maybe around 5 to 10% carbohydrates. The claim of the keto folks is that when we are in ketosis, we shift to a fat burning metabolism, and weight loss becomes effortless and disease risk is dramatically reduced. So this is partially true, that when you lose weight, you do decrease your risk of disease. And the other benefits that are possible with a keto diet or a low carb diet is that blood sugar levels go down, the weight loss happens, temporary decrease in lipid profile, reduced energy intake and appetite suppression as well. But multiple documented side effects, including the ones mentioned here. So the other diet that is quite popular is the paleo diet, and this mimics the diet of our Paleolithic ancestors. So the basic premise is that if the caveman could not eat it, neither should you. So assuming that they were hunter-gatherers, a lot of meat is recommended, some fruits and vegetables, and a few nuts and fruits. So the claim is that the shift from a hunting and gathering diet, which was rich in wild meat and wild plants, to an agricultural diet, which is rich in grains and legumes, gave rise to our obesity and chronic disease risk. Now, scientists have studied the microbiome of these Paleolithic people, and also the dental calculus, and they have understood that most of their diet was actually plant-based. So a lot of the claims that are made by the paleo promoters is actually not true. Then you have this third diet, which is a carnivore diet, which is an extreme form of a diet where you have mostly meat and a little bit of dairy. So when you come to the side effects of a low carb diet, all these are the side effects: diabetes, cardiovascular disease, kidney disease, autoimmune disease, fatty liver cirrhosis, mental health disturbances, constipation because of lack of fiber and water, vitamin mineral deficiency, because we know that all the vitamins and minerals and phytonutrients are there only in plant foods, something called as a keto flu, muscle loss, irregular menstrual cycle, and reduced athletic performance. So between the two, keto and paleo, the paleo is a less extreme form because it does allow more liberal intake of foods, especially plant foods. So why is low carb or keto popular? The main reason is that people love to hear good things about their bad habits, and it does give good short-term results and results in rapid weight loss. And there's a temporary improvement in surrogate markers of disease. Like in medicine, we are obsessed about figures like blood sugar level, cholesterol level, but we should consider the patient as a whole and think about holistic health. And sometimes your surrogate markers might be getting better, but the health of the individual may be getting worse. Most important thing is human physiology. Are humans herbivore or omnivore? A simple look at our dentition will let us know that we are actually herbivores, and these cannot be called canines. These are canines. So even our digestive system is exactly like a herbivore and not like a carnivore at all. So when you consider any disease, any chronic disease, there are 4 aspects to chronic disease. And that's one is inflammation, second one is oxidative stress, third one is lipotoxicity, and fourth one is dysbiosis or altered gut microbiome. And when we are on a whole food plant-based diet, there are many aspects in the food which drive out these drivers of chronic disease. First of all whole plant foods are very calorically dilute. That means there's a lot of volume and you have less macronutrients. It has low glycemic index, it has a high water content. We have a lot of anti-inflammatory compounds in whole plant foods, very high in antioxidants and very high fiber as well, which improves gut health. On the other hand, if you examine all your animal-based foods, you find excessive saturated fat and cholesterol. You have compounds which like carnitine which get converted to TMAO in your gut, heme iron, pro-oxidants, pesticides, herbicides, heavy metals, hormones, antibiotics that are injected into the animal, advanced glycation end products, carcinogenic heterocyclic amines, endotoxins, and U5GC. So just to compare two foods which are very high in protein, one is beans and one is meat. If you compare them, the important compounds like fiber, phytochemicals, antioxidants, prebiotics, and plant sterols, these are very high in beans or lentils, but they are zero in meat or poultry. On the other hand, there are many dangerous compounds, the ones which cause disease. You'll find them all in meat and poultry, and that's total saturated fat, cholesterol, heme iron, U5GC, chemical contaminants, and endotoxins. So let's come to some studies now. There were 3 studies, large epidemiological studies which are done and over tens of thousands of patients. And they were the Adventist Health Study, the Epic Oxford Study, and the Suchi Study. And the conclusion of all these studies was that patients who were on a plant-based diet had much lesser all kinds of diseases, whether it was diabetes, cancer, heart disease, as compared to omnivores and ovo-lacto vegetarians. Then if one look at the blue zones, all of us have heard about the blue zones. These are the places in the world like Loma Linda, California and Okinawa, Japan, where people live the longest and disease free, and they lead very active lives. And one of the things is about of course there are many pillars to good health and they were following most of them, but about their nutrition, it was 96% whole food, plant based, with most of the calories coming from things like sweet potatoes and corn, and only less than 4% was animal foods. So what about low carb diet and chronic medical conditions? Let's examine a few conditions and the studies in this. So this was a study published in the European Society of Cardiology, and what they concluded after studying more than 24,000 participants is that patients with the lowest intake of carbohydrates as compared to the highest intake of carbohydrates had a 32% higher risk of all-cause death, and in addition, risk of death from coronary heart disease, cerebrovascular disease and cancer increased by 51, 50 and 35% respectively. This is another systematic review and meta-analysis of observational studies suggested that low-carb diets were associated with a significantly higher risk of all-cause mortality in the long run. What about diabetes? With low-carb diets, we do find short-term benefits in diabetes, that you get rapid weight loss. Anything that causes rapid weight loss will improve your type 2 diabetes. Improved glucose levels, reduced A1C, reduced triglycerides and fewer medicines. But similar results are also obtained with chemotherapy, with cocaine addiction, tuberculosis and with smoking. So what a low carb diet in diabetes does is that it may treat the symptoms of the disease while actively worsening the disease. So low carb diet is associated with a fatty liver, systemic glucose intolerance, insulin resistance, reduced beta and alpha cell mass, dyslipidemia and inflammation. And these are the drivers of insulin resistance. And as we know, type 2 diabetes is caused by insulin resistance. Coming to type 1 diabetes, type 1 diabetes very often is caused by an autoimmune reaction to cow's milk protein. So some of the proteins in the milk, especially casein, some of them might enter your bloodstream through a leaky gut, and our immune system may throw out antibodies like missiles towards that protein. But some of the amino acid profile is very similar to the proteins which are found in the beta cells of pancreas. So in those missiles go and attack our beta cells, and that's how you can end up with type 1 diabetes. Type 1 diabetes is found maximum in the countries that drink the most amount of milk. What about low carb diet and cardiovascular disease? Actually, a low carb diet which is full of fat, it's a no-brainer to understand that all the cholesterol and the saturated fat would go and clog up the arteries and increase the risk of cardiovascular disease. And this has also been studied and it has been published that a low carbohydrate diet is associated with increased levels of LDL and apolipoprotein B and a twofold heightened increase of cardiovascular diseases. What about low carb diet and cancer? Animal proteins contain many carcinogenic elements, including the protein which the excessive amounts of protein which increase the IGF-1 levels, insulin-like growth factor levels. And when the body does not need to grow, if you have elevated IGF-1 levels, it's going to cause the growth of tumors. So the study on ketogenic diets showed that there was no improvement, there was no evidence for increased survival or anti-tumor efficacy as claimed by some keto doctors. And another important study published by the Japan Public Health Center based study showed that low carbohydrates diet had an increased overall cancer risk, colorectal cancer incidence. And one of the observations made by this study was that if you replace only 3% of your calories from meat with plant protein, you can get up to a 42% decrease in cancer mortality if that protein was from red meat, and a 50% decrease in cancer mortality if it is from processed meat. And both these are considered to be this is considered to be class 1A carcinogen by the WHO, and this is considered to be a class 2 carcinogen. What about kidney disease? many of my patients with elevated creatinine levels who are non-vegetarian, when I ask them to go off non-veg, we are able to stabilize their creatinine levels in many patients. So the kidney disease is due to the dietary acid load, and the acid loads goes up with all the animal products, and it goes down when you consume a lot of plant foods. This is an alkalizing diet, and that prevents damage to the kidney. What about autoimmune disease? We mentioned about the molecular mimicry and animal proteins getting into the bloodstream, and the blood, our immune system creating antibodies to that, and those antibodies go and attack our tissues and cause autoimmune disease. So this has also been proved in multiple sclerosis by one Dr. Roy Swank, who had the Swank diet, which was almost like a plant-based diet with very low fat. He was able to get remission in patients for up to 30 years. Another Dr. Brooke Goldner, who's a physician from the US, was diagnosed with SLE at the age of 16 and was in very bad state. She had stage 4 renal failure at the age of 16 and had been given only 6 months to live. She changed her diet into a whole food plant-based diet, and within a few months she was seronegative, and she managed to completely reverse her disease. And now her mission in life is to coach people to get rid of their autoimmune disease on a whole food plant-based diet. There was an interesting study done in 2021 which was done on healthcare professionals from 6 countries on low-carb diet and COVID. And the results was that on a plant-based diet, the risk of developing moderate to severe COVID was 73% lower. And on a low-carb diet, it was 48% higher. And we are not worried about mild COVID, we are worried about severe COVID. Also, studies have shown that low-carb diets are not optimal for athletic performance, because carbs require oxygen and the more carbs you have, the better your athletic performance. And we have Novak Djokovic, who's a plant-based athlete, who's the number 1 in the world. Just to conclude the last few slides, when we come to the dietary guidelines by medical associations, all these associations, American Heart Association, American Cancer Society, National Kidney Foundation, all of them have advised a diet which emphasizes whole plant foods, especially fruits and vegetables. In the diet ranking, keto diet was, out of 34 diets, was ranking at 34 out of 35, and the best diets for healthy eating, keto ranked dead last. So what's happening is that a lot of lies are being said, and to quote this person who was the Minister of Propaganda in Nazi Germany, said that a lie repeated 1,000 times becomes the truth. Like, for example, you say that only animal protein is good, or you require calcium from dairy, or whatever lies that we've been told since many years. And to conclude, Brenda Davis, a very famous dietitian, has given these characteristics of an optimal diet. So it should maximize health and well-being, should minimize the risk of chronic disease, should meet the need for all essential nutrients. And we've already seen that these are available on a whole food plant-based diet. In addition, it should be satisfying, appealing and acceptable, should be ecologically sustainable and ethically justifiable. So I'm sure you would agree that this is more satisfying, appealing and acceptable. This was mentioned in her talk, that if we all ate paleo, we would need an estimated 15 planet Earths to sustain the current population. So any diet that tells you not to eat an apple has to be, and because we all know that an apple a day keeps the doctor away. So thank you. Eat the rainbow and not the morgue. These are the physicians and dietitians practicing a whole food plant-based diet. These are the references in case some of you want to look at these documentaries and visit these websites for more information. Thank you.